So one of the things that has certainly changed in this climate is the meaning of time. So the urgency of now, particularly in breaking news situations like the one that we're living through right now with San Bernardino, has certainly impacted decision making. And I want to start first with you, Megan, to think about how decision making has changed at the LA Times from the days there was just the daily newspaper, or maybe the afternoon edition, to now where there's a round-the-clock news cycle and a minute-by-minute news cycle, particularly where new information is being contributed online, right, through social media, through citizen journalists, if you will, and how that is impacting decision-making at the Los Angeles Times, perhaps even about what constitutes a good source these days, right, so that we prevent speculation where possible and make good decisions.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about what happened on Wednesday morning. So interestingly enough, the first sign that something was really amiss in San Bernardino was a tweet that the San Bernardino Fire Department sent out saying they were responding to a shooting that had up to 20 victims. And the way it works in most newsrooms now, we have people who are sort of monitoring constantly for news on social media, which can be often the very first time you hear something. Now, you might hear something that's incorrect, but you follow up on it. I mean, the other night, Scott Weiland, the Stone Temple Pilots singer, was found dead. The first indication of that was a tweet from Dave Navarro, another rocker. So you hear it, and then you have to investigate it. So at first, I saw it almost immediately, and I thought, could that number be right? But I was in my office. I got up and I walked into the floor, right? And we started sending people out. We had confirmed with the fire department that was the information that they had, and then started listening to the police scanner. Now, a police scanner isn't always correct. Law enforcement authorities talk to each other over it with speculation sometimes, or the best information they have available. So again, it's just like social media, kind of more of a tip sheet than it is something you would report directly off of. And we sent, I think, probably 3 reporters immediately, then another 5 within 15 minutes of that, heading out to San Bernardino from downtown Los Angeles. And so while they're heading there, we're trying to work our law enforcement sources and social media and other news reports to try to figure out what we thought we knew, right? And I think that what happens is, this is actually a really good example. The LA Times, like many, I'll call them legacy news organizations. Yeah, isn't it good? Sounds nice. So. Really are trying to figure out how do you operate in this era. And I would say, I'll just ask the room, how many of you, I hope some of you still get a print newspaper because that pays my salary basically, but how many of you are waiting for your newspaper in the morning to find out what happened in the world? I mean, a couple? Okay. I'm amazed, but good for you. Good for me, actually. But what I would say is that most people aren't waiting for, even if they get a print newspaper, for the news. And I think, particularly in a huge breaking news event like this, and at first, the broader implications weren't clear, right? I mean, look, in this country, we go through these mass shootings at a stunning regularity right now. I mean, I remember this was something that was pretty unusual at one point in my career, and now does not feel unusual at all. I mean, we fired up a live blog for Paris. We had, reporting from Colorado Springs. I mean, it's sadly routine. But that said, I think especially in a major news situation, I think as a respected, I hope, news source, we bear a responsibility for separating the fact from fiction or speculation. So I think that you feel that responsibility that, I'll take, on Scott Weiland, we were the first news organization who actually confirmed it. We spoke to his wife. Other people had said it was true without having a source. And we were very careful on San Bernardino to try to make sure that everything we were reporting we knew to be true. And we waited on some things. I was saying, we were talking before this, and I said, we didn't even connect the chase and the firefight with police officers immediately. I mean, it seemed pretty clear it was probably related, right, to what had happened at Inland Regional Center. But, we did not connect them until it was connected. And I think I was at a conference a couple years ago with a very fancy title. It was called The Future of Storytelling. And one of the men at the conference, who actually works in the music business, was talking about how when music became available online, and people could post to YouTube and various other sources, a lot of people thought, oh, well, it's been democratized, and sort of the tastemakers won't matter as much because people will just on their own decide what they like. And he said that actually an interesting thing happened. DJs became suddenly much more important than they had been in years because it's difficult to sort through everything out there. And so you're still looking for someone to help you curate and understand the news, just like I think you're looking for someone to help guide you to the kind of music that you might like.
This is exactly why, as someone who has been promoting citizen journalism for my whole career, the idea of a world where all we have is citizen journalism scares me. I think there needs to be a role for professionals to at least be a part of the conversation. Right? I'm not saying that they should dominate or control, but to be a part of the conversation where citizen journalism has a conversation with them. And I think that's the ideal.
Absolutely. Okay. So Tiffany, I want to turn to you because a situation like San Bernardino, the line between news media and Hollywood media, sometimes some would argue is getting more blurred with infotainment, right? And the different kinds of things that are going on. I'm curious about how the events in San Bernardino or similar ones, whether it's Paris or others, impact decision making at the network around sensitive storylines or other things that are going on.
Absolutely. I think that people look to television to define social norms. One of those that, I saw it on television, so it must be true. And obviously, yes, it's for entertainment. However, sometimes a lot of dramas that will feature storylines that might be pertained as insensitive. And so we've looked at those before. Look at our storylines, look at the content. Are there too many guns being used? Are there too many of such and such? And so we look at those and make sure that we are being sensitive to the climate as well as our audience. And we definitely do that. And we have done that, I think, on Supergirl, even a superhero show, something on those where we made sure that we switch that particular episode. So that is always top of mind.
Okay, thank you. So with the race for eyeballs, whether it's to any screen you're looking at, everybody is walking across the street with their eyes glued to their screens. It's the new way to just be. How does that impact decision making for you, Tiffany, in the network? We had hoped to have the Hulu executive producers here because they're behind the first all Latino cast show on television, broadly speaking now, including Hulu. And I'm curious about how new media and the changes that you're seeing in spaces like Netflix and Hulu are impacting the kinds of decisions and the future of a place like CBS television.
For CBS, it really is that we feel television rules, obviously. I mean, being the number one, the most watched network, absolutely it feels that television is still very much significant. And I feel that we are utilizing all of the platforms, whether you watch that traditionally in your living room, kitchen, bedroom, wherever that might be, or on your television, it still is the same in that sense. But it's also that it's broadened so much. I mean, 16, 15 years ago, yes, there were only 3 networks. And now look at it, you can't go through, I don't even think you can spend an hour going through all of these cable stations and wondering, how does this content? But I think that anyone also right now that has a phone can be a content creator. Everyone has that voice, and I think that that's important also when we're talking about images, representation, all of that really truly matters, and so you want to make sure that that's how it goes as well.
So let me ask you a follow-up question. You focus on diversity and getting, the shows that we watch on television to reflect the faces that we see when we're out on the street.
Try hard.
Uphill battle.
I'm fighting the good fight, guys.
And we know it at Impact for sure. But I'm curious about how whether a show like East Los or Aziz Ansari's new show, Master of None, or so many others that are out there being in starring roles with people of color, whether that is helping your job at the network to diversify the shows on screen.
Absolutely, of course. Anytime, you can't say the word empire without every network wants empire on their schedule. So of course, I think that any of those shows, but again, a lot of times when I say people have to create their own where it is, sometimes that they do within a less traditional space, but also that's why it's important for myself and the people that are in these roles, making sure that we give a voice to the voiceless, making sure that we ask those questions when we look at a casting list. Does this really look like our America? Does this really reflect what someone would particularly say? Is this accurate? And I know we're not the History Channel. I know it doesn't have to be factually, but we have to make sure that are we actually casting the widest net. What are these images showing? And I think that a lot of time there's a tremendous amount of unconscious bias as well as conscious bias, let me tell you. But unconscious just in the sense of we've seen it this way, this is what looks normal to us. And I think that I had a great example of this. There was a role for a firefighter. And when they came in, there's 30 men, number one, and I'd say 29 of them were white men. And I said, you know what about if we did an Asian American female? And the casting directors, they were kind of like, what the hell is she talking, what? Just in the zeitgeist, right? We're not thinking that way. And I said, wow, the captain of the fire department in San Francisco was an Asian American female. If we saw more of those images, it becomes normal. If we saw more Muslims in particular roles where it wasn't so stereotypical, it becomes normal. That's why Master of None, yes, does it help me? It helps me tremendously. I'm sending emails, look at this, look at the great press that the LA Times is showing about this show, or whatever that it is. So it definitely helps the more that we can see that this is the new normal.
Thank you.